Welcome back, cool cats. So a lot of what I've already shared in the past few videos is still relevant to what I'm about to share, but this price action right here was that last piece of information that I think we needed for more clarity. Red and green candles can have a strong psychological effect on a trader, so I'm trying out gold and blue. So blue is for down and gold is for up. As a reminder, nothing I share is financial advice ever. The main descending resistance line is going to be in green on all of these charts, and it begins from the all-time high on February 19th, but I think it's just as equally valid if it's drawn from the 21st, which was the first of many strong selling candles. This other descending support line will be in light blue, and it began on February 25th. The price action that developed yesterday confirmed this lower line in purple as the likely lower support line of the symmetrical triangle, with the upper resistance line here also in purple. If this is a legitimate symmetrical triangle, let's go over what its upper and lower targets are going to be for SPX, SPY, ES futures, NDX, QQQ, and NQ futures. Keeping in mind that if this upper resistance line in green cannot be broken, it could lead to a false breakout of the symmetrical triangle and actually force the market down into this even wider megaphone pattern as we covered before. So I'm keeping this video very short and sweet. I'm not going to be going over any of the key levels that each could hit along the way up or down. These are just going to be measured targets. And I'll preface all of this by saying that as bullish as the market just turned, if we switch over to QQQ and look at it on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that the RSI here is already getting into overbought condition. So at the very least, I'm expecting a pullback tomorrow or Thursday before continuing up. And if we retest the previous resistance line of the symmetrical triangle here in purple and confirm it as support, we could definitely be headed much, much higher. So we'll kick things off with SPX on the daily time frame. If this pattern plays out, it implies a measured move of roughly 775 points. Meaning if we go up from here, SPX could be targeting about 6,100 to the upside, placing it very, very close to this very key resistance line that goes all the way back to 1929, which I will just continue to point out because it's so significant. However, if the breakout fails, it could be targeting about 45.50, which if we look left, that's a pretty key level. And of course, it all depends on where it were to fail. If it retests this previous resistance line in purple tomorrow, that would be around 53.10, and the green resistance line will be around 5,500 tomorrow. All right, we had to look at price action on SPX on the daily time frame because SPX doesn't have extended hours, but for SPY and the futures, I'm going to leave it on the 4-hour time frame because I like to see every little bit of price action. So SPY, based on this pattern, would be targeting roughly a 73-point move to the upside. And if this pattern actually began on April 7th instead of April 9th, then it would be targeting an even bigger move of roughly 83 points. So we could be looking at either a roughly 600 or even 610 to the upside, or roughly about 465 to the downside. And if SPY were to retest the previous resistance line here in purple tomorrow, that would be around 527. And the green resistance line will be around 552 tomorrow. And it's worth noting this orange trend line here that goes all the way back to July of 2023. We'll have to get above that as well. And that will be somewhere around 545 tomorrow. The ES futures will be targeting roughly about a 740-point move. From where we broke out today, that would be targeting roughly 60.90 to the upside. And if instead the market were to roll over tomorrow, then we would be targeting about 46.75. ES could retest this previous resistance line in purple around 5,300 tomorrow. And this upper resistance line in green will be around 55.85 tomorrow. All right, we're moving on to NDX on the daily time frame. This would be targeting roughly a 2,900 point move, which could take it theoretically up to about 21,600, or we could actually see this go all the way down to about 15,000. And this main resistance line in green is going to be around 18,850 tomorrow. And notice how NDX actually hasn't broken out of the symmetrical triangle yet. And I feel like NDX looks a lot more like a massive megaphone pattern than SPY. And tomorrow, this green resistance line will be around 18,900. Switching over to QQQ on the 4-hour. If it isn't obvious, big tech is what's been leading all of this price action up and down. And I think it's showing a lot clearer price action than SPY is. So based on this pattern, QQQ would be targeting roughly a move of about 79 points. So from here, that could be about 533 to the upside, breaking back inside of that multi-year channel that we've discussed before, which at least goes back to October of 2023, or we could be looking at roughly 375 to the downside, which would break this support line of the most significant bullish channel for QQQ, which, as I've shared multiple times before, goes all the way back to October of 2008. And if this support line gets broken, I don't even want to imagine what it could mean for the world. And this upper green resistance line will be somewhere around 458 tomorrow. The NQ futures on the 4-hour, this pattern is going to be targeting about a 3,300 point move, which could take us theoretically up to about 22,000, or it could take us down to about 15,450, which we can see, just like QQQ, that would have us breaking this very, very strong support line. The green resistance line is going to be around 19,100 tomorrow. So moving back to QQQ, I just want to finish up by reminding everyone how often symmetrical triangles have a false break followed by the real move. And I'm keeping that in the back of my mind. If the breakout is false, all you have to do is take your measured move and move it over to where it actually breaks down from. And that should give you a rough estimate for about how far it could fall. And if we go to touch this green resistance line, I'm likely going to be hedging just in case. And one last thing to share, the apex for the green resistance line and the lower support line here in purple is between about April 30th to May 1st. So there is the possibility that we don't fully break in one direction until around the end of April, which is fast approaching. And after the initial impulsive move, it could take at least a few more weeks for it to fully play out, because you almost always have that initial break, a period of consolidation, and then the final move. Best of luck, cool cats, and God bless.